Hello YouTube, and welcome back to my channel where I'm going through some older test decks. I've got a backlog of these that I want to kind of get through just to kind of show my initial exploration in the format and testing and fumbling around or whatnot, trying to learn. So this is from that era. And this particular deck is Mono Red Ponza, and you know, it's a fairly common deck. I don't think it's a very good deck, but because I'm a land destruction fan, I want to explore it and play it. So this was my first try at running this type of deck. I'll have a few other iterations over time that I'll pepper in with the testing videos as I've tested this deck a few times, and that's why I've come to the conclusion I think it's not very good. I do have one more piece of tech that I want to try that would be a complete brew for this instead of just picking decks on mtgdecks.net. But I did want to try some of the builds that were out there, and this was one of my first ones when I was just trying to learn the format. So we're going to run through this one first, and we'll see this archetype come up again. Okay, so for Mono Red Ponza in this particular list here from a while back, running 26 lands, which for me at first blush seems like a lot of lands. Now granted, I think, so I'm coming from the mindset of modern Magic instead of pre-modern, because that was kind of my format that I liked the most before it got ruined basically by Wizards of the Coast. Which pushed me into this pre-modern stuff, which I'm kind of glad it happened because I love pre-modern. This is the best. But my brain is kind of still stuck in that mindset of I would expect a deck like this to have like 22 or 23 lands. But that being said, I think the reason it has 26 lands is because basically Wasteland is considered a spell. It's a land, it taps for mana, but I think that they have 26 lands because these are considered to be a spell. So there's 4 Wasteland, like 4 spells would be in your spell slot. That's kind of my impression of that. So, we'll kind of see through the games, and like I said, there'll be a couple more iterations of this as we go through some of the test videos. But just to see if it's something that get flooded out a lot, or that is the Wasteland always useful? Because I mean, there are some decks that have some basics out there in pre-modern. But that was just one thing I noticed when I first was doing this. So anyway, 26 lands. Mentioned the 4 Wastelands. You got the 4 Rishadan Ports, which also is mana denial. There's 11 mountains. 4 copies of Mishra's Factory. Seems pretty popular in a lot of decks. It's just a really good, useful card. And then there are a couple of Get-To encampments, which is also a man land, just not quite as good as Mishra's Factory, but still serviceable for especially being in red. And then there's a singleton copy of Barbarian Ring that can sometimes maybe hit the opponent for the last 2 points of damage or whatever. So there's one of those. Moving over to the 1-drop slot, there's quite a bit going on there. 18 1-drops. There's 2 copies of Firebolt. A 1-mana sorcery deals 2 damage, and you can flash it back for 5. There's the full complement of 4 Grim Lavamancers. Even though there's no fetch lands, I mean, your Wastelands are going to the graveyard. A lot of your burn spells are going to the graveyard, your Mog Fanatics. So theoretically, there should be plenty of fodder for Grim Lavamancer to be able to operate and get some points, points scored in, I should say. 4 copies of Lightning Bolt, one of the best removal cards ever printed, probably. 4 copies of Mog Fanatic, and the Fanatics and the Bolts and the Grim Lava Man kind of give it that burn feel, which is interesting because these Mono Red Ponza decks kind of are half burn, but instead of going all in on burn, they choose land destruction, which, like I said, I don't know if that's the best strategy. That's probably why this deck's more of a fringy deck, with the Sly and burn decks being, top tier decks because they're lower to the ground and they're more focused on one thing, where this archetype is a little split. But it's fun to blow up lands, so I'm always going to be a fan of that. There's 2 copies of Cursed Scroll, which does give us a colorless source of mana, so it's not all red against some certain types of red color hate. And there are 2 copies of Phyrexian Furnace for main deck, graveyard hate. And then we get into the first two drop being, the only two drop, a Dwarven Miner. Not real crazy about this card, but, he is a source of recurring land destruction. But I don't like the fact that it's weak, for one thing, and that it costs a lot of mana to destroy a land. But that being said, if this goes unchecked, sure, yeah, it can do a thing. And it's also non-basic land. It's not even destroy target land. So I'm not a real big fan of this card, but I do see it in a lot of mono red Ponza builds. Then we have the meat of the deck, which are the land destruction spells, where we have 4 copies of Stone Rain, the original, and 4 copies of Pillage, the slightly better version of Stone Rain, because it can also hit artifacts. And then we have, at our quote-unquote top end, we have 4 copies of Avalanche Riders, which, they are a 2/2 body that kills a land also and has haste. And the Echo is a small drawback, but, it is what it is. This is kind of the main hitter of the deck. I kind of feel like Avalanche Riders and Premodern could be utilized better somehow, but I haven't figured out what that is. But anyway, that's, in this deck, it fits right in as the quote-unquote top end. But one other thing that I'll mention is that another thing I don't like about this deck is for you to be successful in mana denial or land destruction, which is something I've been playing for a long time in various formats, the key is to have the land destruction or the mana denial early. And this deck is kind of sort of good at that, but not really. I mean, it's got to wait until turn 3 to do anything. But the other thing is you got to really back it up with pressure. And I just don't like the fact that you're beating down with 2/2s and trying to hit them with lightning bolts for an opponent that's 15 life or whatever. Just my impression. Like I said, I've already played these games. This is just going to be a replay. These are older decks that we're just going back through. So those are the Avalanche Riders. There's a copy of Aftershock, which actually this card is not bad. It seems pretty bad because it's 4 mana sorcery, and it says destroy target artifact, creature, or land, and then it does 3 damage to you. But the thing I've noticed about this card that kind of helps to cover up a weakness in red, and that is red, of course, is damage based. So if you have a creature that's out of range of your lightning bolts or whatever, they're really tough to get off the battlefield, like a Psychotog or maybe even just a 4-power creature like a Baloth or something like that. Whereas this just straight up destroys. So that's why I think this card's not as bad as it looks. So that's a singleton there. There's also a singleton copy of Pyrokinesis. This is a good one because it's a free spell that can basically be a pseudo sweeper, so that's kind of cool. I don't know if that could be explored to have more of those. And then we also have Earthquake, which not only is a sweeper but also does damage to the opponent as well. You take damage too. It's symmetrical, but given that you're burning them out and hopefully keeping them down on lands, when this comes down, you can hopefully be ahead on life and maybe close the game out or do some significant damage while taking some creatures out. And then we have over here in our sideboard area, and looks like I didn't really organize these very well, but we have a singleton Tormod's Crypt for Graveyard Hate. That's all it has, because we do have the main deck Phyrexian Furnaces, of course, so there's just an additional piece of graveyard interaction with the Tormod's Crypt. We're really heavy on anti-blue, so there's 3 red elemental blasts and 3 pyroblasts, 3 overloads, all for killing artifacts, and then we have kind of a hodgepodge of different things here. Sulfuric Vortex, I think, is very strong. This has only got 1 of in the sideboard, but this is a very good card, I think. And the mono red builds that have this, I think, are the kind of the scariest ones in my mind. We do have a Nevinyrral's Disc that can be a reset button to blow everything up. 1 Anarchy specifically to hate against white. A Boil to blow up islands, like if you're playing against a mono blue or what have you. And then there's a singleton copy of Bloodfire Colossus. So this is just a deck I got off the internet, as it were. So anyway, that's the deck. This is our first go around when we were just testing and learning the format. So let's fumble through this together. All right, let's go to match 1 with our testing of mono red Ponza. Again, this is tournament practice. These games have already been played, as many of my recent videos have been. I've got a pretty good number of decks to work through in a backlog, if you will. So, looks like we're ahead on board. Able to blow up an early land there. Seems like the opponent may have missed a land drop. They're Cabal Therapying us. They see the Firebolts, which they could hit that if they can get a creature down and sack for the therapy. Just too much land destruction. I think, like I said, they may have missed a land drop there. These games, again, are accelerated. They're going very fast. And I am trying to narrate something that happened a while back for some of these first initial testing decks that I've been putting up recently, and have, you know, a number more to put up with different things. So, all right, so opponent's got a Wall of Roots here. We're just going to port the City of Brass. It's their multicolored land and also does opponent damage to them. They get a pretty good Cabal Therapy there to take away 2 lightning bolts. We blow up that City of Brass. They have another one. They've got a Pernicious Deed out now. We're going to waste the Brass City and blow up the forest, leaving them with just the Pernicious Deed that they can't even activate now because they don't have any mana other than, oh, they can activate it for 1 with the Wall of Roots. So, and we can't get in with our Mishra's Factory. Now that both the main lands... Okay, so we decided to go Dwarven Miner there. And now we're going to get in with the main lands. Unclear why I didn't attack with the Mishra's Factory. Oh, well, they could have sacked the Pernicious Deed for 0, so I only wanted to expose 1 land in combat. That's probably what I did there. And it appears that with no lands in play, we have kind of an overwhelming advantage here. So we're bringing the crew. They block with all the roots. They do sack the Pernicious Deed for 1. So they are able to take out the Mishra's Factory. They smother the miner. We've got Echo on the Avalanche Riders. At this point of the game, it's better to just pay the Echo, which I think I'm just trying to make sure I can keep up a manland activation. So I redid the mana, but I decided not to attack with the manland there. Probably preferring to port, I guess. Yeah, so yeah, just did, you know, sometimes you just don't want to let them out of jail. Okay, so match 2 for this. Starting on a tapped encampment. Opponent's got a Therapy. They see our hand. We've got a Fanatic and a Phyrexian Furnace. Burn away the Therapy. They have another one. They already know what we have. They take the Curse Scroll. Lava Man down. Sacks the Therapy to blow away the Stone Rains. Pretty efficient. Get in with our Mog Fanatic beats. Another Fanatic, and keep the Phyrexian Furnace burning. They've got a Ravenous Rats, dumping the Firebolt. They've got a Curse Scroll and 2 cards in hand. We find a Stone Rain, but not a 3rd mana. Can't really attack into the rats. They can attack us, we'll just take it. And they've got a Hippie. Play the Lava Man. We could actually ping the Hippie. That's a line. They're going to kill the Lava Man with the Curse Scroll and upkeep. Coming in for the attacks. All we have is a Stone Rain, which is, we can't even cast it, so we just let that go away. And we just attack back. We got no cards in hand for the Hypnotic Spectre to feast on. Got a Withered Wretch. They can start burning away our graveyard. Opponent gets in for 3, activate Curse Scroll, and we're down to 11. Not looking too good for the good guys here, but we are still going to stay on the offensive. 2-1 first strike coming in, leaving the Fanatics back. It's probably time to start blocking and pinging, I think. And that's exactly what we do. They hit us for 2. We're at 9. And not much help coming our way. So we can attack here and then have a factory, but they've got the curse scroll, so we have the factory as a blocker. Where the Wretch does some cleanup on our graveyard. Opponent's got lots of lands. Yeah, we're just done for there. So couldn't draw anything good. Game 2. Mountain go. Probably should have been get to encampment go, but I think a lot of times I don't play a non-basic on turn 1 just because of wasteland, so that's why I went with mountain first instead of get to encampment. So we're still building up to a stone rain. We port there. Ravenous Rat still gets us. We're able to stone rain. There's a lava man. Rats get in. Opponent kills the lava man with a bolt. We blow up that mountain. We've got another Ravenous Rats. We dump the Aftershock. Get the pillage in. They got their 1/1s. And we swing back with the factory. And we forget to port a land, I think. And okay, so now, yeah, there we go. Probably should have done that last turn, activating both lands. Again, these are early games that are, not that I, mistakes are just something that happens in Magic, but sometimes, and the games are going fast, so it's a lot of times hard to analyze what's actually happening, but I do like the sped up format. I hope you guys like it too. I would like some feedback on that. So let me know what you think. Opponent's got to terminate. Duress sees nothing. Ravenous Rats keeps attacking. We do hit an Earthquake, which is not bad. Being up 13 to 11, we go ahead and max it out just because they have so much hand disruption that I want to get full value out of this Earthquake. So we go for 4. They bolt us down 7 to 6. They got a Sabo's Web, which strands our ports. Lavaborn Muse pings us for 3. We draw a mountain, and so we're just dead there. All right, next match. This will be match 3. Start on Curse Scroll. Opponent's on a Goblin Cadet. Port their land. Get in for 2. I can't remember. I think Goblin Patrol is the one you have to pay. I can't remember what the drawback is on Goblin Cadet. Oh, when it blocks or becomes blocked, a drawback occurs of some kind. So we're porting a mountain. They're still getting for 2 a turn. It's pretty strong. Find an Avalanche Riders. That feels pretty good to hit a land. They tap it for mana. Sack the Bloodstained Mire. Incinerate the Avalanche Riders. And the cadets could keep doing their work. Oh, a ball lightning. Ouch. That hurts. We picked up an Incinerate. We have man lands to block. They've got a bolt. We incinerate their dude. And they've got a Fire Blast. Game 2. Have to mold a 6. Start on the get to encampment. I know I mentioned earlier about not starting on a non-basic. I don't think I saw any wastelands in their deck, but that could be why. It's a Fanatic Palooza there, and they clear away for the Lavamancer. We blow up a land. They've got a pup. We activate the factory, start getting in. Mogthmanic quickly gets rid of the Lavamancer so the factory can keep attacking, but we decide to take the turn off and bolt, or firebolt out of the graveyard to use all of our mana. Opponent's got more stuff. We're going to stay on the aggressive plan here, leaving up mana for Furnace and Bolt. Opponent's got another cursed scroll. We bolt them. Picked up an Aftershock and an Avalanche Riders. Avalanche Riders comes down, kills the factory, since it's just that time of the game where that's more important than the red mana source. They got 2 mountains. Here comes the Fanatic. We go to 9. Avalanche Riders, we decide not to pay. Instead, get the man-land beats going. Presenting lethal, but they have an overload, and the Fanatic can hit the get to encampment, being only a one toughness creature. The 2/1 first strike is back. They take it. Opponent's at 2, goes down to 1. Gets in with the Jackal Pup. We fire up both encampments. They hit one with the Curse Scroll. Opponent's at 1, and they have a Fire Blast for the other one. Oh my gosh. They're staying alive at 1. And still attacking. Wow. I mean, I guess the manlands are cleared away. Here comes the Cadets again. Ooh, then we find the Earthquake, which will end the game. So, all right, so game 3. Mono Red's kind of a tough matchup, because basically Mono Red is just the better deck than the Ponza. Mono Red Ponza just being kind of a, less accomplished cousin, if you will, of any type of straight burn red deck. And they're just kind of pushing us around on the playground here. We're trying to get our feet underneath us. Got to use all that mana, blow up a land, take some more damage. Got a Lightning Bolt for the Fanatic. Get the Lava Man down, 2 Lava Men, and a Phyrexian Furnace. So play out our hand, basically. Opponent's got a Price of Progress. Ouch. That was a good one, too. Man. Took half our life there. So we find our Riders. Gonna get that down. Kill a mountain. Opponent responds with an Incinerate to the face. We're at 2 life. Probably just a stiff breeze, so we're done for here. Yep, just a bolt. We're dead. All right, well, match 4. In all these practice matches in the tournament practice room, I do my best to play 5 full matches. So sometimes it's a matter of curating the games, and I don't mean that in like trying to make myself look good, because you can see there's the mistakes are there, the losses are there. I'm not trying to make myself look good, but when I say curate the games, I mean in the tournament practice area on MTGO, it's sort of a Wild West in a way, because you can get some good games, you can get some bad games, you can get some players that are new, that are very slow, timeouts and disconnects and early scoops, and there's just a little bit of everything out there. So you never know what you're going to run into, which on the one hand does make it interesting, but on the other hand, sometimes playing in a league is better, just because you're going to get, for the most part, quality games, tough games. Tournament practice is a little bit different, but I think it has its place. It's one of the only places where you can really brew. I mean, now a lot of times, if you're brewing or testing, like I do a lot of, there are some, just for lack of a better term, and I don't really like this term, but tryhards, people that are there to practice for tournaments. I mean, I get it. That's what it's for. But I've been playing in tournament practice MTGO for a very long time, and it's mostly brewers, but there are certainly the spikes, and a lot of times, like in pre-modern, the rooms are not as busy as like modern. But I know when I was playing modern in tournament practice, a lot of the spikes would just because you can put a little message on your game when the game's waiting for someone else to join. You can put a message that just says meta decks only, and that way the spikes can kind of find each other and play those tournament, their practicing for that weekend's challenge or whatever they're doing, an RCQ, and they can get their quality games in without having to mess around with somebody's, homebrew or whatever. The pre-modern area of tournament practice, I don't see a lot of that where people are saying tier decks only or anything like that. As a matter of fact, I see a lot of like buddies only or 60-minute games or new to pre-modern. So like I said, kind of the Wild West. And when I say curate games, I'm just trying to find, so I play a lot of games out there, and then I just try to curate and find 5 full matches, basically. Win or lose, just full matches of Magic where, the cards get played and there's a result and so forth. So that being said, this is match 4 of this particular group of games for this first test of Mono Red Ponza in Premodern. When I was first just learning the format, like right here I'm playing against Dreadnought and probably didn't know that I was playing against Dreadnought at the time. I wouldn't think so. Or maybe I did know, but it's, you can know what a deck does and you can read a card, but there's a lot more to it than that. So, and as you can see here, speaking of the namesake card, they get one down, phased out with the Vision Charm, which the Vision Charm is definitely the superior trick card over Stifle for this deck. We take the 12. They've got a second one just for good measure, and our puddly little deck just puts its tail between its legs and go home. So game 2 against the big baddie. We have to mold a 6. Got a decent hand. Another thing I don't like about this deck is your land destruction doesn't start until turn 3, unless you have Wasteland, whatever. At least on the tier Ponza decks like Oath Ponza, you can get it out. You can destroy a land on turn 2. But these decks, turn 3. By then, they've got the Hydroblast. So anyway, yeah, we keep trudging along here. We're just going to start porting islands, it looks like. And that's what we do here. They've got a Hydroblast for the Fanatic. It's kind of a strange card to Hydroblast, but that's what they did. We bolt them in the face. Got some Avalanche Riders coming down. Oh no, we decided to get to encampment. I think it's probably just because they have 2 blue up, and that just usually, to me, says counterspell. Boy, they got Hydroblasts all over the place. But casting the Avalanche Riders directly into the untapped blue mana, I'm always a little unsure about that. Boy, they got the misdirection action going on too, don't they? Just making a mockery of us. They're misdirecting all of our bolts to our own creatures. That wasn't the first time that happened. So we finally, we just, I thought we were going to play the Riders there, but we played that Firebolt out of the graveyard. It's better to get that countered. Now we finally have to play the Avalanche Riders, and as expected, it gets countered. So yeah, and this is another thing here, like the opponent's got 5 cards in hand, the red deck has none. They find their pieces again. We're going to get in and ping them for 2. They'll be at 8, but the deck doesn't have any finishing power. I actually think that, and since these test games are already played, in a future test deck, I've considered some type of, for Mono Red Ponza, because like I said, I think it's kind of a weak deck, some type of a heavy hitter in the deck, or a stronger way to finish the game than 2/2 beats, But for right now, that's what this deck is. I've looked at a lot of different lists. They're all kind of the same. They have a few cards different here or there, and I am going to try a couple other builds that I've already played that have at least one more series of games for Mono Red Ponza. And then I've got other ones in the pipeline I've been looking at. Like I said, I like land destruction, but this deck is weak, and so I don't know we'll see how that plays out. I don't know. Okay, so back to the gameplay here. I know that was kind of a long-winded soliloquy there, but okay, so we kill their meddling mage with the lavamancer, and they pack it in. We were blowing up their lands, so that game went pretty good for us. We've got a game 2 here. Opponent's portenting. We start on a Mog Fanatic, pass back. Opponent's got another meddling mage, this time naming Red Elemental Blast. We port their island. They got another one. Get in for the 2/2. We attack back. Go ahead and fire off this Stone Rain on the white source. Opponent's got a Psychotog. Back to the good guys. And we try to pillage away their island. It's successful. We get down a Curse Scroll. So the only thing about this Psychotog here is it's not real scary yet. We do go ahead and block and sack there. Stone Rain the blue source. They blue elemental blast it. We waste away the gemstone mine. Opponent impulses. This Earthquake's not doing much against the Psychotog. It can take out the meddling mage, but it depends on if we draw a red blast and have to try to do 2 spells at once or something. If we can get to this Cursed Scroll Mantle, that can also kill the mage. Just have to see how this turns out. And the Psychotog is building up. Yeah, I think... Oh my god, the counter spells everywhere. I think the reason I did this was just to make them burn up some resources. We're at 11, and yeah, that's it. We just can't win with what we have in our hand there. It was just going to get worse from there on out with the Psychotog. Okay, so it's game 3 here of the final match of this particular group of games. Get in with a 1/1. Just holding up our mana. See what the opponent's got going. Accumulated knowledge. Opponent's got a full grip of cards. To bring in our Call the Herd. We Lightning Bolt that away so we can keep pecking in with our 1/1. Waste away the City of Brass. They have another one. There's a Psychotog. We've got a Red Elemental Blast for that. Hit in for 1. Brass City again, and it's Meddling Mage's time. Picking Lightning Bolt, which that's a pretty good name, but we have another Red Elemental Blast, so we get that out of the way. Continue the business of the 1/1 Pex. Opponent impulses. The Call the Herd comes back. Okay, so flashback from the graveyard. We have another bolt, and we're just clearing stuff out of our way for this Mog Fanatic and keeping the land destruction going. Opponent gushes. This time we're firing up the factory since we're all out of land destruction. Get in there. Opponent's at 5, 20-5. So I've lost many a game being up this far and having it slip through my fingers from some of these control decks. They do get the Psychotog down, which is very important for them. Fortunately, we have a Pyroblast. They gush, and Survey says, "Yep, foil." So, but the nice thing about this Aftershock is it just destroys a creature. You know, there's no damage involved. Trying to damage a Psychotog is like, you know, spraying a garden hose in the wind or whatever. Armageddon's Away the Lands is a desperate move to stay alive since it's 17-4. I can't say that I have never done that. So we get in for 1 with the Lavamancer there, and that. Okay, so I just wanted to come back for a quick wrap up on this. Again, this was a test deck in the Premodern practice rooms where I just was first learning the format and was attracted to a mono red land destruction deck. Have to say I'm not real impressed. I am going to try this deck more in the future with different builds and different cards, but this particular one, again, just like I said before, it's got the land destruction, which is nice for mana denial and trying to get ahead that way in the game and attacking on that axis, but it just doesn't have enough teeth to close the deal. The Avalanche Riders and the man-land beats are just not strong enough to put any real pressure on the opponent, so they're always able to wriggle out and find their way through. So again, I'll just be trying different builds of this deck, but I don't know how long I will do that. I have already made up my mind this is just a bad deck. I don't really care for it. That being said, it is playable. It's playable certainly at the F&M level. It's really kind of a budget deck too, so there may be some considerations that you could make. There's probably some more budget builds out there. I've seen budget builds. I just don't remember exactly what they were, but so I think it's reasonable that it is a deck you could play for relatively cheap compared to some of the prices of Premodern. But yeah, like I said, I do have at least one other test series of games with mono red Ponza that I'll put up later after a few other videos I've got in my backlog. So look for some other stuff for me. We're just going to keep them going. Once I get through this phase of backlog decks from the early days, I'm not really sure what I'll do next, but whether it's more leagues or more tournament practice for just other stuff that might be interesting. I try to gauge as best I can just like the views or the interaction with what's going on. What do people prefer? It's hard to tell, but it seems like so far my reboot of my channel hasn't really been around all that long, except for mostly 2026. So like the first half of the year or whatever. But it does seem like that people prefer in general the more obscure decks, which is good. I like obscure decks too. The only problem is it's hard to play those decks and expect to win and do really well. So for me on my channel, there's always going to be a mix of brews or interesting decks, obscure decks, and then tier level decks. And all within, of course, the kind of stuff that I like to play, because I'm a big believer in, if you're a Magic player, that you should really try to play decks within your wheelhouse. And there's always the very good advice, and I've certainly used it before, to pick one deck and just really master it, know it in and out, know all the interactions, understand what it does against each other deck in the metagame. That's a very important skill to have as well. So that's definitely the way to play the game usually. And even though I've been kind of spreading everything thin on Premodern and playing a lot of decks, I know that I'm going to land mostly in the Ponza Terrageddon mana denial space with some, like Moneyball Black type stuff thrown in there. That's my kind of thing. So that's mostly what I'll play. Some of the decks are kind of cool too, like the Solution. Some of the creature decks are all right. So I've got a good variety of things that I like. But yeah, so you guys will see more of that coming up as we move through these videos. I appreciate you very much for tuning in and watching. And that's about all I have to say about this deck here. We'll probably see another iteration of this sometime down the road. So appreciate you guys stopping in, and we'll see you in the next one.